That morning, the Mississippi sky burned with the harsh golden blaze of a June sun. Oak Ridge Stadium, home to the largest marathon trials in the region, was already packed. The stands roared with excitement as athletes warmed up, their toned white bodies gleaming under the sunlight. Numbers printed proudly across crisp sponsor-funded jerseys, almost 100 names from across the southern states, each with personal trainers, support teams and fans screaming their names. And then, among the ocean of brand new gear, stood a figure so out of place it drew stares like a stone thrown into still water. Jalen, 16, maybe 17. Black, thin. His faded t-shirt clung to him like an old rag. His track pants were frayed at the knees, and the sneakers on his feet had holes big enough to show the dark curve of his toes. A cheap plastic water bottle hung loosely from his hand, the kind given away at charity drives. A battered backpack sagged from one shoulder as he moved, slow, steady, unshaken toward the starting line. Whispers rolled through the stands like a storm cloud ready to break. Near the technical zone, a group of white runners burst into laughter. "Hey, wrong street, kid. This is a track, not a soup kitchen." Another smirked, stepping close enough to sneer in his face. "Bet you'd win if this was a race to the food bank, huh? Go home, boy. Look at him. Probably fell off a garbage truck on the way here." The jeers piled up, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Jalen didn't flinch, didn't glance, didn't even blink. He just kept walking, head lowered slightly, as if every step followed some invisible rhythm only he could hear. At the line, he stopped, turned his nearly empty bottle upside down, shook it hard to get the last drops, and splashed them across his forehead. Almost like a ritual before battle, a hush swept through a section of the audience. They didn't know who he was.
Wait a second. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us.
But there was something striking in the contrast. This wiry black boy, ragged and alone, standing in the middle of a glittering stadium, filled with expensive sneakers and smug laughter. From the hallway, a man approached. Rick Dalton, one of the coaches on the organizing committee, early 40s, serious face, but kind eyes. His gaze fell on Jalen's ruined shoes, soles peeking, barely hanging together. Lowering his voice so only Jalen could hear, he asked, "Son, with shoes like that, are you even allowed to compete?" For the first time that morning, Jalen lifted his head, and Rick froze. Those eyes, dark, sharp, burning like a storm-lit night, locked onto his. There was no pleading there, no defiance either. Just a fierce, unyielding fire Rick hadn't seen in any of the sponsored runners. Jalen spoke, his words slow and clear, carrying far enough for the first rows of the crowd to hear. "I don't need new shoes. I just need to run." Because he did need to run. More than anything. More than anyone there could understand. The night before the race, in a cramped, dimly lit room on the outskirts of town, a flickering yellow bulb hung over a rusty metal bed. On it lay a thin, black girl, no older than 9, her breaths ragged and uneven. Naomi, Jalen's little sister, his only family left in this world. She had learned to live with a crushing tightness in her chest, with the way her heart would sometimes skip and stutter like a broken clock. But tonight, the pain clawed at her harder, wrapping her whole body in a vice grip. Jalen's hands trembled as he dialed for an ambulance. 15 minutes later, Naomi was rushed into the emergency ward. Jalen sat in the waiting room, hunched forward, heart hammering so loud it felt like his own chest might give out. When the doctor came out, his face was grave, tight as a wire ready to snap. "We've stabilized her for now," he said, "but she needs a heart transplant within 10 days. There's no other way. We've found a compatible donor. The rest depends on you." Jalen's lips went dry. "How much?" "With priority processing, specialized medication, and post-op care, around $60,000. $60,000. The number hit him harder than any punch. 60,000 for a boy who had spent his life scraping coins from washing dishes, hauling trash, doing every dirty job he could find just to keep food on the table for Naomi. Their parents were gone, taken 3 months ago in a car crash, on their way back from a night shift at a construction site. They died trying to earn the money for Naomi's treatment. Now, all that was left was a 17-year-old boy, thin as a reed, clinging to the only thing he had left in this world, his little sister's life. And the only way he could think to save her was to run the Mississippi State Marathon. First prize, he had heard of it weeks ago. No coach, no proper gear, no real training, only sheer desperation. He signed up as an independent runner, knowing well the ridicule would come, the stares, the laughter. But none of that could kill anyone. Naomi's heart could. The next morning, race day, Jalen slung his worn-out backpack over his shoulder, carried his almost empty plastic bottle, and walked 4 miles to the stadium. But fate wasn't done testing him yet. As he slipped into a back hallway to rewrap his battered ankle, 3 white competitors cornered him. The tallest grabbed his shoulder, shoving him into a bathroom stall. The door slammed shut behind him. The lock clicked. "Hero boy, huh?" one sneered. "Stay here and wait for life to open the door for you." Their laughter echoed, then faded. Jalen pounded on the door. No one heard. The air was damp, heavy with bleach. He looked up at the narrow vent near the ceiling, backed up, climbed onto the toilet tank. His hands scraped against the rough metal as he pulled himself up. His skin tore on the jagged edges of the vent, blood streaking the steel. But he made it through. He dropped to the side of the track with barely a minute to spare. His heart pounded as the announcer's voice echoed across the stadium. Jalen broke into a sprint toward the starting line, his breath sharp, every muscle screaming. The gunfire read. 10 minutes into the race, cameras focused on the front pack of sleek, sponsored runners, but slowly began to drift toward the back, where a boy in a faded gray shirt and shredded shoes pushed forward like every sec cost him a piece of his soul. When a competitor deliberately stomped on his shoe, a sharp crack split the air. The sole peeled away like torn skin. Jalen went down, face first. His chin hit the track. His knees scraped raw. The crowd gasped. The commentator sighed. He never should have entered this race. Blood streamed down his leg. But Jalen didn't look at it. He heard something else instead. A voice in his head. Naomi's voice. "You promised me I'd live, right?" Jalen clenched his fists, pushed himself up. His left shoe barely held together. He tore a strip from his shirt and tied it tight. Every step was agony. Every breath, a knife in his chest. But he kept running. The laughter in the stands faded. No one jeered now. They only watched, silent, as if witnessing something sacred. An old man in a worn marathon t-shirt wiped his eyes. That boy, he's not running to win. He's running because someone needs him to. The front runners began to falter, but Jalen didn't notice. He didn't care what place he was in, didn't care who watched. He only knew one thing. As long as he could breathe, he would run. Because somewhere in a hospital bed, Naomi's life depended on every drop of blood pounding through his legs. That noon, the Mississippi sun burned the asphalt like fire. The white stripes on the racetrack shimmered and blurred in the scorching heat. At the very back of the pack, Jalen's feet clung to the ground as if gripping onto the last fragile thread of hope left in his world. He was dead last, behind even those who had already dropped out. Blood seeped from his torn heel, soaking through his ripped socks. His left shoe was no longer a shoe, just a bundle of frayed fabric, barely holding together. Every step felt like a knife slicing into his flesh. But Jalen did not stop. "You promised me, right? You promised I'd live." Naomi's voice echoed in his head, a whisper that pushed him forward. Jalen no longer cared about his rank. He only knew this. As long as he could breathe, he would keep running. For that promise. For the little heart fighting for every beat in a hospital bed. At a deserted bend in the course, he spotted a crooked wooden sign, "Official Shortcut." Jalen didn't hesitate. He turned. The shortcut was rough and uneven. gravel tearing into his skin. But he clenched his teeth and charged ahead. The crowd erupted in confusion. Some shouted, "He's going the wrong way." But the big screen quickly confirmed the route was valid, just rarely chosen due to its brutal terrain. And then Jalen reappeared on the main track. At first, only the sound of rushing air followed him. Then came the pounding of his footsteps. People turned their heads. Jalen passed the 10th runner, then the 9th, then the 8th. Dust swirled behind him. His eyes didn't look at anyone. He wasn't running to win. He was running for Naomi. A panicked voice came from the front. That black kid's catching up." Craig, the white runner who had stomped on Jalen's shoe earlier, looked back and froze. Jalen was coming, his eyes blazing like fire. Craig tried to block him, but Jalen les past with a sharp sidestep, brushing by like a gust of wind. 2 more runners. 1 more. The leader, Bryson, heard the footsteps gaining. He turned and saw the skinny black boy, shoes torn, legs streaked with blood, charging like a living arrow. Impossible? Bryson's mind screamed, but Jalen didn't stop. The finish line flashed ahead, only 3 meters away. With a final surge, he overtook Bryson just as they crossed. The stadium erupted. Cheers, sobs, shouts. An explosion of emotion. He won. Oh my God, he actually won. Jalen collapsed right after the finish line, his body crashing onto the ground. He had no strength left, but his eyes, blurred and tear-filled, lifted toward the camera. Not to celebrate, but to speak silently to someone. "Wait for me, Naomi. I got the money. You're going to live, I promise." And somewhere else in a cold hospital room, Naomi's small hand twitched ever so slightly, as if her heart had heard him running all along. The young black boy was still collapsed beyond the finish line, too exhausted to stand. Around him, the stadium erupted into chaos. Flags waving, cheers thundering, people chanting Jalen's name as if their hearts were beating in sync with his. The loudspeakers blared the announcement loud enough for him to hear through the haze of pain. Jalen Moore, winner of the 42nd statewide marathon. Jalen, unable to rise, crawled slowly to the side, gripping the barrier for support. His eyes reflected both exhaustion and unyielding resolve. Dried blood clung to his socks, and his torn shoe stood as a raw testament to his determination. Amidst the wild applause and shouts, one voice rose above the rest. He did it. The boy did it. But that wasn't all that happened at the finish line. Up in the stands, a coach with a conscience, Mr. Harris, who had witnessed everything, was already uploading a video. The footage showed a group of white runners dragging Jalen into a restroom, locking the door and stomping on him during the race. Within minutes, the video went live on the official Marathon Association page with the caption, "Unsportsmanlike conduct and racial discrimination detected in state marathon." The internet exploded. Comments flooded in, furious and relentless. "I can't believe they did this to a kid. Ban them for life." The organizing committee had no choice but to act. An emergency disciplinary meeting was held that afternoon. By evening, the verdict was announced. 5 runners were permanently banned from competition. The training club lost all sponsorships and financial benefits. Craig, the ringleader, was barred from all nationally recognized races for 5 years. At the same time, something extraordinary began to happen. Jalen Moore, the black boy with torn shoes and bleeding feet, had not only won the marathon, he had broken through prejudice. Sports associations reached out with offers, invitations to official races, sponsorship for new gear, professional coaching. A prestigious athletic academy granted him a full scholarship. The $75,000 prize was transferred to his account immediately. Jalen withdrew part of it for Naomi's urgent heart surgery and donated a portion to a fund for underprivileged athletes. The rest was saved for Naomi's recovery. 3 days later, at the children's hospital, a door creaked open. Naomi, his 9-year-old sister and only family left, opened her eyes for the first time since the operation. The nurse smiled. "Her heart is stable now." Jalen entered, pushing a wheelchair. Naomi couldn't say much, But when her tiny fingers wrapped around his, her eyes sparkled. "I always believed in you." Jalen swallowed hard, unable to speak. Every drop of sweat, every mile of agony, every ounce of pain. Suddenly, all of it meant something. A few days later, on a quiet morning, Jalen returned to a small practice track next to the stadium. This time, he wasn't alone. Naomi sat nearby with her doctor and 2 kids her age. The story of the boy who ran for his sister had already become a symbol of hope. Parents brought their children to meet Jalen, as if meeting a real-life hero. No one mocked him now. People clapped, waved, took pictures with him and Naomi. The practice track was empty, except for the white fences, the rustling leaves, and the sound of steady footsteps. Jalen stepped onto the track, and Naomi watched him with bright, trusting eyes. No jeers, no hateful words, only smiles marking the beginning of a new journey. Jalen wasn't an athlete with a private coach, professional shoes, or a meticulously crafted training plan. He was just a black orphan boy, with torn sneakers, a frail body, and a promise he had to keep for his little sister. And because he had nothing else, Jalen was forced to run with everything he had left in his heart. Love, the fear of losing the only family he had, and a willpower no one could truly understand but him. He didn't win because of strength, he won because of belief. Belief that as long as he kept moving forward, Naomi still had a chance to live. Belief that someone like him, pushed, locked away, trampled on, still deserved the same finish line as anyone else. His victory wasn't at the moment he crossed the tape, but at the moment he stood up from the dirt, bleeding and battered, and chose to keep running. And the world had no choice but to follow those footsteps. Naomi lived. Jalen kept his promise, and thousands of others, after hearing his story, began to believe that resilience can grow in the harshest soil, and love is the strongest force a human being can carry when running through the dark.